This meeting is being live streamed. Got it, yeah?
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. So, hope you guys had a good break. Now, for the second half of this event, the guest speakers will be Grace Viragar from Scotland, Renee Akitalek Mboya from Nairobi, and Leon Ladia from San Francisco. First, I would like to introduce our moderator for this session. His name is Mr. Taruna Kusmayadi, and he usually goes by his nickname Nuna. He first pursued his education in California, majoring in accounting and fashion merchandising. He felt that the education he achieved was not enough, and so he tried to get enrolled at Fashion Institute of Technology in New York, majoring in fashion design. Kusmayadi started his fashion business in 1990 while working at an international jeans company in Indonesia. After that, he worked at Hong Kong-based garment brand, which supplied its products for Indonesia's market. Kusmayadi then started to give lectures at Jakarta Institute of Arts in 1999, as well as a few other institutions. Kusmayadi is currently one of the advisory board members of Indonesian Fashion Chamber and also a director of an event organizer known as Ditali Cipta Kreatif. Please welcome Mr. Taruna Kusmayadi.
Thank you, Tara. Hi, everybody. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for presence here. And we really love to have you as 3 speakers. And they are all beautiful. And thank you, everyone who attending this international seminar, which is going to be very interesting presentation and probably discussion and Q&A session. Okay, why we're here? Let me read why we are here, right? Transcultural dialogue in art and design. As a concept, transculturalism has critically provided an entry point in understanding the zone of contact when cultures interact. Our challenges are transformed through cultural mixing. Furthermore, globalization has pushed us to think about artistic and cultural practices beyond the boundaries of the nation state. In some notes, globalization has encouraged the development of contemporary arts, practices, and discourses in Indonesia in 90s, accompanied by openness in expression and the rapid penetration of information technology. As is the case in many other parts of the world, our practices have developed to become more global, transcultural, and intercultural. Therefore, various attempts have been made to revise the Western-centered art history, also known as Euro-American centricism, to represent the discipline of art history as a more multicultural field, to find alternatives to the available chronological order, and to focus on migration of images, information, ideas has become an inseparable part of human life today in most areas of the world. Continuously, this affects the transformation of today's social cultural realities. Based on this idea, the FSRD IKJ International Seminar entitled Transcultural Dialogue in Art and Design is organized to present studies from academics who have a focus on transcultural discourse in art practice, including fine art, crafts, visual communication, design, interior design to fashion. Within this framework, the seminar will focus on specific topics which are global art and transcultural aesthetics. These topics focuses on how transcultural aesthetics form in the other part of the world beyond Europe and North America. The topic may focus on artistic practices, ideas, and material culture in specific contexts. Transcultural ties and identities. This topic focuses on the migration phenomena of the people that affect their identity and culture and how they preserve the transcultural identity in the new places. The third, fast dissemination of images, ideas, and meanings. This topic focuses on the role of technology in the transcultural phenomena. Technology doesn't only advance artistic practices, but it has also the potency to create and disseminate a new meaning speedily. And the fourth, art as the means to challenge the dominant power. This topic focuses on how art and designs are used as a tool to challenge the dominant power. Ideas, epistemological thought that narrates the history of art. The topic seeks how transcultural thought from many perspectives it can challenge this power to create new narratives and reflections. Well, I hope all audience get the means why we are here. And before we start and further do for this seminars, we would like you to know the first speaker, Ms. Grace Sirugar, and I'd like you to introduce her a bit. Grace Sirugar is a multidisciplinary, multi-continental contemporary artist currently living and practicing in Scotland. Sirugar has exhibited across the world, most notably at the Biennale held in Yaoundé, Cameroon, and in the National Art Gallery of Senegal. Sirugar also exhibited over many years, solo and with other artists across her country of origin, Indonesia, and ran the Tondi Art Gallery in Medan, North Sumatra, for a number of years. Sirugar's work spans photography, video art, performance, painting, sculpture, and installation, always pushing at the boundaries of fewer discomfort and blurring lines between standard categorization of genre in art. The one thing that can be said for certain about Sirugar Oeuvre is that you never know what is coming next. Sirugar currently lives on the island of Bute in Scotland, and her plans include an open-air exhibition in a community-run forest, which is a part of the Atlantic rainforest. Ms. Sirugar, are you ready? Yes? Shall we wait a bit? Yeah. Probably you still muted. Yeah, Ms. Sirugar, yeah.
Hello.
Okay, you're on.
Okay.
Yeah, please.
So first of all,
we give
thank
you
you very
we
much.
give you the time, yeah, to present your presentation.
Okay. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me for this important seminar in art and design. And then I'm so proud of IKJ, Jakarta Institute of Fine Art in Indonesia. So I would like to introduce myself like you already did. So I'm going to read my speech of ulos, where I'm wearing it now, as a futuristic traditional element in my contemporary artwork. The world is at a crossroad. We have already passed all the threshold of what nature can offer us. And now climate change and environmental collapse threaten our existence. People are coming to realize that, in combination with modern technologies like renewable energy and electric public transport, many of our traditional ways are not just part of our past, but also of our future. Traditional organic regenerative farming techniques and ways of life that we in Indonesia have often rejected in our search for a better life are being rediscovered and celebrated as solutions to our current and future problems. In my, in my work, I often use materials from the industrial processes that dominate our life. But when I attend my exhibition openings, I always wear the traditional woven textile called ulos from my ethnic group, the Batak people of North Sumatra, Indonesia. This is my way of expressing how I experience the 21st century. I face reality and reflects on it candidly, whilst honoring those elements of traditional Indonesia and other cultures that deserve being celebrated and explored. Themes I have covered since I started my full-time practice in 1999 include the end of Orde Baru, women's place in Indonesia and global society, 2001, climate change from 2001 to now, present, the challenges of parenting with technology in our kids' hands, 2011, and more recently, COVID and its effects on all our life in 2020, 2022. In 21, I proudly wore my ulos at the National Gallery of Indonesia in Jakarta with my piece Steel Tree, a 5-meter high sculpture made with a combination of steel constructions and a dead tree, exploring the impact of Jakarta's nature-unfriendly development approach. I wore my ulos at Bentara Budaya Jakarta Gallery in Jakarta in 2004 to present my solo show, including my global warming piece, Time Machine, which was a large 3 meters by 3 meters by 2 meters cube constructed from ice blocks. The piece melted away over the days of the exhibition. I wore my ulos at opening of my solo show, Losing It, in 2015 at the Institut Français in Yaoundé, the capital of Cameroon in Central Africa. The installation piece was constructed out of curtain of hundreds of zebra striped plastic water kettles that Cameroonians use for washing their hands. At the National Gallery of Senegal, I presented my installation show, Dakar Emerging Dakar in 2017, where I filled the whole National Gallery with fluorescent light tube of various colors. The National Gallery director informed me that this was the first ever installation exhibition. At the opening, I combined my ulos in a performance piece that includes a Chinese friend presenting a tea ceremony with my African friends from Madagascar and Ivory Coast and Senegal in their own traditional garments, a traditional Senegal dance and drumming group. In 2019, my solo show in my new hometown of Rothesay in Scotland included a performance art piece reminding the audience about our habits of commodifying women's body. And most recently, I presented a performance art piece in front of large all-black painting as part of the 3-person show these days, a reflection on COVID in 2022. I'm looking forward to organizing an outdoor exhibition in one of the remaining fragments of the Atlantic rainforest on the Isle of Bute in Scotland in 2023, This is a forest which is being rewilded and expanded, and so bringing art into the public space will be a celebration of the positive steps that we can all take to recalibrate our world to one where the well-being of all life, including ours, rather than profit for a few, is the common goal of us all. Thank you. So this is the a group exhibition which I organized. I invited a poet from Rotsey, Andrea Dow, and then also a writer and filmmaker called Scott O'Neill. And then we all experienced about being locked down for 2 years. And then from that, the reflection of that, we call this exhibition these days. I performed a performance art called Staring on the Wall, with the conducted by a clock. And I painted 3 meters by 1.5 meters painting with a dark kind of oil paints. It reflected our life in the world, that the virus and the being locked down as a human being is not easy to combine. And while other colleague of mine, Andrea, was talking about her feeling through her poem, and then also Scott O'Neill, he wrapped the exhibition in a film which been shown to the Rotsey public for 3 weeks. So that's my works and my performance art. Next. I had my solo exhibition in Rotsey. When I came in 2017, I didn't see any contemporary art exhibition in my new hometown, Rotsey. And then I decided for my next solo exhibition, I would do it in Rotsey. The aim was that I wanted the normal people, the grandmothers with grandchildren, the mothers who came to the town, or other people, ordinary people, can go and look at the exhibition. This piece, I call it decay. As we can see, a lot of things happening in the world because of the climate change, and then the decay is part of that. Next. And like I said to you, I always wear my traditional ulos from North Sumatra, where I come from, to contradict my appearance in my traditional costume with my contemporary artwork. Next. This is the exhibition I had around the world using bathtub. For me, bathtub is the symbolize of uncertainty. When you feel sad, when you want to be alone and want to think about something, when you feel that you feel nobody basically, and then you just kind of like wanted to be alone in the bathroom. And then that was me basically thinking about a life ahead of me, having children, and then how to bring up my children, and with this all kind of problems surrounding us as a human being. So this is symbolized of that situation. Next. This is the costume I was wearing, working together with David, the photographer. And then he took a photo using a plaque from the system of photography from 150 years ago. So my daughter, my youngest one, and we were kind of like decided to wear our traditional costume ulos from North Sumatra, Indonesia. And then we both sitting, and then you can see as if we were living from 150 years ago, using this very old photography, which I really love. Next. So this is my solo exhibition in Dakar National Gallery in Dakar, in Senegal. When I landed before we land from, when I was still in the plane, it was dark. But when I look at down, I saw the lights of Dakar, and it was so beautiful. And then, like you said, it's really affected my ideas for my solo exhibition. I didn't even know I would do my solo exhibition in Dakar National Gallery. So from that moment, I used lights, like when I saw it from the plane, before we landed to the Sédar Senghor Airport in Senegal, in Dakar, and then to bring the contemporary, and then to use lights, and then with the modern techniques, it's light up the city itself and the gallery itself. A lot of Senegalese people came to the exhibition, and then people enjoy the lights, and also in the opening, I said to the director of exhibition, I said, the opening, the people, the guests, which being inside of the gallery, is going to be part of its work itself. So in the video, you can see the shadows of the people when the light become darker and darker, and that's our representing Dakar, amazing Dakar. Next. So in my performance art, I always invited people, friends of me who live in Dakar, either Chinese, Japanese, Senegalese, or other part of Africa, like from Ivory Coast and Madagascar, and then working together with a musician and a dancer in Senegal. But this photo of me with others is basically my performance art, meaning let's sit together and then enjoy the tea, and then let's enjoy the opening of the exhibition as if it is celebrating life itself, included celebrating the artwork in that exhibition, my exhibition. Next. So like I said to you, in Cameroon, I was being invited by Goethe Institute to talk about women, especially in the contemporary art world, representing in the world itself. So I was a keynote speaker there, and I was the only female speaker. So I was saying, and that meeting, I would say that you have to work really hard to encourage female artists everywhere in your country, find them. You have to work maybe triple harder than you find a male Cameroonian artist, because we are there, but we're not really representing at the time, 2014, to show the work. So I know that for the future, I said, I would be very grateful if you can invite more female Cameroonian artists, dancer, theater, poet, and then visual art and filmmaker. That's what I was saying in my speech, because in Indonesia, we are big, and we are being represented very well in the country, but I was quite a little bit uncomfortable being the only a keynote speaker in that meeting in Goethe Institute in Yaoundé, Cameroon. But I did give advice. You really, if you create exhibition, biennale, international exhibition, solo exhibition, group exhibition, please work really hard to include and to look for female artists who may be very shy, and then who may be not being discovered yet, but created and then make a very, very beautiful, not only beautiful, but very engaging work in some of today's life. Next. So I had, I was being invited for Biennale in Africa. This is the work I representing at that time. I represented presented this work installation in front of a Cameroonian National Gallery. It was kind of like, if you know, I was being brought up, I was born during the Suharto, the second Indonesian president, in the, you know, the same kind of feeling of a dictatorship. So I can feel, I can recognize, because still today that a Cameroonian is being led by Paul Biya, the president, for nearly 37 years. But you can feel the atmosphere is not really openly spoken about the opinions in life and everything. So for me to light up the gallery, it's like celebrating the artistic life of Cameroonian itself in that biennale. So its size is like 9 meters by 4 meters work. And then I just dig the soil and then put the material inside of the soil and cover that with play with electricity as well. So it is it was really a magical at that time. Next. So my mom died 10 years ago. So for me, losing mother, my mom, is like losing half of your life. So every time I miss her, I created a work, you know, to remember her. I didn't really put that in the frame because I want her to be all the time with me. So this is like, remember her. I so proud. Because part of me is my mom. My mom always said to me, go and do whatever you want as long as it's very good for the humankind. So that is the remembrance of my mom. Next. Yeah. This solo exhibition in Institut Français. So they invited me to fill up the whole gallery in Institut Français. And then when I was there, you know, Africa is always have these very strong images of a zebra stripe, you know. And then when I went there, when I lived there, I was saying to myself, and also I was telling my curator at that time, Mr. Mbasi, I said I would create an installation based on these images, you know, in Cameroonian and also in the nature itself. So I made this work. It's 10 meters, repeating the same images, you know, 10 meters by, I think, 4 meters work. And then a lot of Cameroonian art lover, even the Cameroonian itself, came to see that, and they enjoy it because they didn't expect that I will use the images, you know, as part of my repeatedly as part of my installation. So that was my kind of cadeau present for Cameroonian people in Institut Français. It was shown for 3 weeks in that gallery. Next. So when my daughter, I had my solo exhibition in Brighton Fringe. So they invited me and they gave me the whole church to fill up. So at that time in 2012, I gave my first, my daughter first mobile phone. And then at the moment when I gave it the mobile phone for her, she was 12 years old. I didn't give her a mobile phone because I didn't agree that parents give a mobile phone to the kids in the early age. So when I give the mobile phone, it was like a love triangle. My daughter with her mobile phone, and I tried to get what is it, intention or a reaction from my daughter to give me, you know, but when the mobile phone was between us and at that time, it became like triangle love affair, between my daughter with my her mobile phone, and me trying to get her attention. So I took this photograph while she was under of her duvet, and I just managed to use the photograph without using light, because she was so busy with her mobile phone. I took like loads of shot of her, and then the aim of this photograph is like we all parents, even till today, has been experiencing with our kids with their mobile phone. Luckily, I didn't give that mobile phone to my daughter in early age. So when she had that, when she was 12, she already knew, because I was talking to her a lot about the dangers outside, social media and everything. So we all parents till today, we experience kids being, busy with their gadgets and mobile phone. So that was a more personal exhibition, which I saw it to the public in Brighton Fringe in 2012. A lot of people came and then to see that images at that exhibition. Next. I also worked together with African drummer from Gambia, Mamadou. So I was performing, and I said to Mamadou, he lived in Brighton. I live in Brighton. We met all the time, just say hi, not far from each other. And I said to Mamadou, it's really important for me if you can play your music in my solo exhibition in Brighton Fringe. So, and then at that time he did, and then it was, and then like usual, I was wearing a ulos, and then also using a mask, and I presented it to the opening of my solo exhibition in Brighton Fringe at that time. And then he was a great drummer, and I'm really proud of him as well. Next. So this is, like I said, this is another public view in Rotsey, and then where me and my daughter, Tondi, and at that time she was 7. So we were wearing kabaya, ulos, all these things, ornament for the graduation of my daughter, Rachel, before she went to Edinburgh University. She was being accepted in Edinburgh University to study classics, and we were presenting proudly with our traditional clothes there for her, and also people enjoy it too. Next. I think that's all. Oh, this one is this is the exhibition, my solo exhibition in Bentara Budaya Jakarta in 2002. So at that time, I was already kind of feeling about the nature is being not in balance. Like, for example, we watch David Attenborough program, with my families. And then also you can see the melting of the ice on the planet. And then, but people didn't realize it was 20 years ago. So I designed the ice blocks, designed this work. And then I wanted to show it to the people of Jakarta, Indonesia. And I put this ice block in front of the Bentara Budaya Jakarta Gallery in the garden. And then it's included thousands of ice blocks. And then it was melted nearly in 3 days. It was melted and gone. So that's part of my work to talk about climate change, climate crisis. And then I call this time machine. Next. And then also when I, next to my home, there was a small park in Galur Sari, East Jakarta. And then I was always walking around, with my daughter at that time. She was 2 years old, my oldest one. And then I saw this log of wood laying there. And I can see also a lot of forest being cut, and then for making our life better. So I was kind of like wanted to show as it was. That is another environmental disaster is happening right now. And at time, I just took this log and then hang it in the gallery just as it was. And it just simple as it was, you know, to presenting the work in Gallery Dua in Taman Ismail Marzuki. So that was also very important for me to show it to the public about the environment crisis or climate change. Next. And this is my solo, this is my work in National Gallery in Jakarta. It's the tree was given by my neighbor who lived in Jalan Pramuka in East Jakarta. And then they said, Miss Grace, do you want to have this tree? Because if you don't want it, I will cut it, and then maybe you want to do something about it. I said yes. So they gave it to me, and then in the exhibition, that was the painting I made also. I saw my paintings and also this Jakarta steel or tree steel. So I was making that and combined it with the steel and then light, as if when the tree itself was alive during that time. And I worked together with my American artist called Ranger Mills. So I said to Ranger, I would really like to make this tree stand up, not laying, you know, normally people just put on the floor. And then, but I said, I want to make this tree stand up, and then as if the tree was alive before it died. It also representing my worriedness about how many forests in our world being cut out. So this is a memory of that in National Gallery. A lot of people came to see the tree as well. Next. So in Jakarta, in that time, a lot of wide construction being built alongside the river in Jakarta. So it was kind of like, you can see so many migration from other part of Indonesia to Jakarta, the capital of Indonesia, where people trying to work hard to change their life. So that images, you know, I worked with steel at the installation, and then the Jack Art at the time invited me to show my work. And then they said my work can be put on the National Monument Garden. So that work represented the people of migrated from other part of Indonesia, because Indonesia is very huge, from Sumatra to Papua. Jakarta is the focus of you know, the change of life of each of Indonesia who moved to Jakarta. So I made this work, and then I showed it to the public in a Monas Garden, National Monument Garden in Jakarta, and sponsored by Jack Art at that time in 2001, I think. Next. That's it. So that's my presentation. I hope.
Okay. Very
That's
interesting. We can give applause to Miss Grace. Thank you very much. It was inspiring, and inspiration of your works can come from everywhere. Yeah. And then you're having exhibitions from Brighton to Gambia, Scotland, Senegal, Cameroon, even Jakarta, and probably some other places
Australia
that you have been to.
Yeah.
And Australia.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was about a tsunami in that time. Organized. So it was a group exhibition about tsunami in Aceh, the biggest disaster in the world. So we created work together, and then they saw it in Australia, in Sydney, in Melbourne, in Adelaide. So yeah.
Great. And then you, I noticed that you have passion in environment. Yeah.
Yes.
In culture, community, sharing life of to humankind. Yeah. That is your passion. And also the lovely zebra cattle.
Yes.
Yes, it was beautiful, and I think it's really cute. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, we like to have you in Q&A session later, right? And then since we have one speaker that catching for flight, yeah, from Amsterdam to Sao Paulo, very long trip, we give you sometimes to rest and then we get back to you later. Okay, Miss Grace?
Okay.
Okay, good. Thank you. And then our second speaker is gonna be, this is very cute name, I think. Rene Akitelek Mboya. Mboya, yeah. Did I say it right?
Yes, perfect.
Yeah. Rene Akitelek Mboya, the title of presentation, Lullaby for a Small Death on Mythology and Mortality in the Archive. Rene Akitelek Mboya is a writer, curator, and filmmaker. Wow. Her custom is one that relies on biography and storytelling as a form of research and production. Renee is presently occupied with looking and speaking about images and the ways in which they are produced, but especially how they have come to play a critical role as evidence of white paranoia and as aesthetic idioms of racial violence. Renee works between Dakar, Kigali, and Nairobi, and is a collaborative editor with the Wali Chafu collection. Okay, since Renee is catching flight from Schiphol, Amsterdam to Sao Paulo, I think I just cut my speech and then I give you the time, Renee, to present your materials. We give you the time and place. S'il vous plaît, mademoiselle.
Thank you very
Madam.
much, merci.
Yes.
Yes, it's wonderful to join you here today. I'm sorry for the context. I have some heavy vehicles moving behind me once in a while, but I hope you'll be able to hear me. I am currently in transit on my way to Sao Paulo, which is where I work. I am one of the curators for the Video Brazil biennial, which is a biennial of art that happens every 2 years. And next year, 2023, is our 40th edition. Much of my work has to do with archives, and I was very excited to hear Miss Grace speak about the practice of her mother and how those practices can be activated in thinking about how contemporary art has a place in helping us to build archives. So yes, I will speak a little bit about the context of my work, less about my own work, but a bit of the context of my work and how it emerges and the kind of thinking behind it. And then I will show you some illustrations of work from artists who I think are quite important in thinking about how we can reconstitute archives. So I will read now, and please stop me if at all I am unclear or if it gets too noisy. Thank you once again for having me. As we converge, thank you. As we converge, curators, artists, essayists, visual storytellers, and viewers, we constitute a process of memory work, where the past is mediated in the present. Our explorations into the archives engage memory work as an investigation. It uses film, biography, choral songs to intervene in the archive. In reaching into the archive, we mobilize myths, fabulation, and subversive reenactments to critique and undermine dominant narratives. Symbols and stories are access points of our inquiry. They are necessary because, according to Sontag, memory does not have an intrinsic collective characteristic. Instead, interpretations of the past are a political act mediated by images and narratives. Memory work in post-colonial Africa has often followed the imperial formula of remembrance. National days of commemoration, public monuments, museums, exhibitions, and even school curricula all fall within the remit of aligning citizens with perceived and agreed upon values in remembering the past. And I think it's very much the same in Indonesia from what I can tell. These forms of transgression create a state memory that situates the citizen's identity within its sovereign sense of heritage as belonging to iconic state symbols and ideas. Memory applied from above constitutes what Bell calls the governing mythology, whereby the transitional state decides what past is to be remembered, when it can be voiced, and what material constitutes acceptable forms of representation. Given this perpetuation of the colonial condition, Azulay advocates a process of historical inquiry in which one stops transferring ways of knowing from imperial structures into post-colonial spaces. She describes this unlearning as a mechanism to complicate the go-to forms of evidence used to describe experiences or identities as fixed facts or events. As archivists and curators, we provide a framework to understand the impacts of memory work and determine how they interact with strategies for repair, reconciliation, or transnational solidarity. It does not solve the wounds of the past, but soothes it does not solve the wounds of the past, but soothes it through sound and inquiry. I would like to introduce an art historical moment in Kenya in which artists use different strategies to unmake the past. Here, colonial story intersects with the critiques of liberation, pointing out the promise and shortfalls of leadership. In this way, we seek to address representational wounds. In the process, we make ourselves vulnerable, exposing positionalities. Duress is messy when recalled from the former seat of empire. Thus, inquiry and practice create a methodology for unlearning governing mythologies embedded in state memory. Can we have the first slide, please? Thank you. Nuro Qureshi is a German artist born in 1977. She lives and works in Berlin, Germany. She's a photographer and mixed media visual artist who studied photography at the Academy of Art University in San Francisco. In her photographs, Qureshi explores places and practices associated with the darkest aspects of human history, such as war, colonialism, and genocide. Drawing on archival work and interviews, she investigates collective memory and the historical and individual relationships to their shared past. The image that you see here, I think if everybody can see, it's an image of a man we assume to be deceased, and there is a pile of oranges beside him. This man represents the initial stages of Nuro's practice. This particular collection is called Are You Calling Me a Dog? And in this series, Nuro attempts to kind of recreate and reconstitute a colonial archive that is lost. In Kenya specifically, our archive is missing, and up until 2002, the Mau Mau were considered to be a terrorist group. So it wasn't possible to speak openly about them, and thus their archive was very much lost through deaths and various other transitions, but specifically because they were for a long time criminalized. And so I think the context of the Mau Mau will become a bit clearer as we proceed, but to put the images of Nuro's work that we see here from the series Are You Calling Me a Dog into context, the Kenya Land Freedom Army, also known as the Mau Mau, was a guerrilla army formed mainly by the people of central and eastern Kenya. They resisted British colonialism in Kenya from the late 1940s to the early 1960s, culminating in the Mau Mau Rebellion from 1952 to 1960. Can we have the next slide? Thank you. One of the most important achievements of the Kenya Land and Freedom Army was that they were able to develop a robust and effective information system that combined oral experiences of ordinary Kenyans with print. Songs were produced to pass important information to raise political consciousness. At the same time, newspapers would be published. The KLFA published over 50 newspapers in different languages, such as Kiswahili, Kikuyu, and other Kenyan languages. And they also produced a large amount of sound recordings and had their own presses. Many of the songs that the Mau Mau produced reveal two key perspectives on land as presented in music performance. The pre-independence claim to the idea that land is a God-given right, and as synonymous with political rights, and the post-independence irony of achieving political independence with no access to land. The image that you see here, of course, is a reenactment that Nuro makes of a Mau Mau soldier. According to survivor testimonies, one of the ways that the British military tortured Mau Mau suspects and prisoners was by forcing them to dig their own ditches, fill them with water, and line them for long periods of time. One thing that I would like to acknowledge is that a lot of these ditches still exist. And what the British colonial government did basically was cordon off entire populations. Up to, I think, 1.5 million people were secluded in these, what used to be called native reserves, which were essentially concentration camps. And these ditches still exist. So one of the things that we are trying to explore in Kenya as the Wali Chafu Collective is the idea that the landscape holds specific types of memory, and memory making is embedded in land practices, as I said in the previous statement. We can have the next slide. I think the next slide has a song, so you can potentially hear, no, the slide before, sorry. Yes, there is a song embedded in this slide, so you can potentially hear some of the music that the Mau Mau made. Is it possible to play this slide?
We only received the PDF, so there's no music integrated.
Okay, no problem. So the gist of the song is that Kenya is the land of Black people, and this was the beginning of the initiation of a consciousness around land rights and land activism. One moment, sorry.
For security reasons, please watch your personal belongings.
Okay, I think you all got the security message. So I think yes, the song that we were supposed to play is the prime example of how to demonstrate. It's a prime example to demonstrate not only how music archives reflect and respond to social and economic political issues, but also how they are influenced by the context in which they are created. The Mau Mau built a song archive embedding narratives and strategies regarding land and their invocations of nationhood, the structural aspects of the music in relation to salient issues on land, dispossession, and nation building, and their performative context. The songs demonstrate an enduring, emotive, moral, and cultural political value of land, especially for those Kenyans who are unable to access or release the material or monetary value of land. In that respect, the response of the British colonial government in response to this noble endeavor of archiving was a violent and continued suppression of fact and the processes of history across former British colonies to date. We can have the next slide, please. Thank you. So I think it's important to speak about the musical archives specifically because they are significant to the way that archiving continues to happen in Kenya, and specifically the ways in which political processes attempt to instrumentalize archives. A lot of the research that we do at Wali Chafu is to do with musical archives and radio archives, but specifically the fact that from the 1960s up until the mid-1990s, much of the music that was being produced by state actors and state institutions, state radio mostly, was choral music that was propagandistic, propaganda choral music. And one of the initiatives that we've been doing in the past couple of years is trying to reclaim and retranslate a lot of this music, and finding that the music that we were singing as children was quite sinister in its messaging and very directed towards a specific political goal. I want to show you again here this image from Nura. Nura traveled in Kenya and found locations where they had been moving gallows that had been installed. That had been installed that were kind of like pop-up gallows, pop-up execution spots, if I can call them that. And so she makes these photographs using the instructions of people who had been in these communities while the gallows were installed. And so they built this specifically for Kenya. This is a unique instrument. They moved, but because they wanted to make the executions more efficient. Let's have the next slide. Okay. Okay, so I want to speak a little bit about the context of all of this. Like I said before, this is happening between 1952 and 1963, which is when Kenya finally got independence. But the Kenya emergency was a period in which where Sir Evelyn Baring, the governor, declared an emergency in Kenya in 1952, and it was decided the British Army should be responsible for areas of British and European settlement, and the King's African Rifles would be responsible for security in the Kikuyu reservations. Kikuyu is an ethnic group in Kenya where the Mau Mau were most active. The Kenya Police and the Kenya Police Reserve remained responsible for law and order throughout the colony. The King's African Rifles were required to prevent food and other supplies reaching the insurgents from Kikuyu villages and the reserves. These so-called insurgents were in fact Kenyans fighting to free themselves from the illegal occupation of their land as a colony by Britain. During the entire emergency from 1952 to 1960, the total number of settlers who died were 32, that is 32. And there were fewer than 200 British soldiers and policemen killed, and 1,800 loyal Africans. As for the Kikuyu, in a census held in Kenya after the emergency, it was revealed that 300,000 Kikuyu had been killed or were quote unquote missing. This is a big conversation in Kenya right now. Like a lot of people disappeared during this time who are not accounted for and untraceable, and their families are seeking redress in British courts currently to see if they can get compensation or information about their missing family members. The official figure for the number of Kikuyu who died was never really known. The administration published doctored figures to satisfy white Kenyans and the politicians in London. What a shocking indictment of colonial rule, the Kikuyu, Meru, and Embu tribes were driven from their ancestral lands and restricted to native reserves on poor land, often rocky and subject to erosion. The settlers confiscated fertile land in the Rift Valley and around Nairobi, and this became known as the White Highlands. So this land actually currently in Kenya is still, for the most part, plantation land. It's a homogenized infrastructure. So this land has never really been returned to the people to whom it really belongs. And the ecological effects of this are quite interesting as well, because in the 1950s and 60s, this caused huge famines, and a lot of people actually died of starvation, which I think is often not acknowledged as a byproduct of colonial war. But currently as well, we see ecological effects of these forced removals, and even in our food culture, even in our family lives, there are very clear instance, there is very clear evidence of these interruptions. Can you see the next slide, please? Yeah, I just wanted to show you some of the propaganda material that was being produced during this time. I'm not sure how clear it is, but on the left you have a poster. On the right you have a poster that shows this criminal Mau Mau figure, quite, and I'm really interested in general in iconography, especially graphic design in the last 100 years or so. So you always have this kind of image of a kind of like cruel-looking, teeth-bearing black man who was wielding a gun, which was almost impossible among the Mau Mau. Like, they actually didn't have any kind of sophisticated weapons. All of the weapons that they used were handmade at home, so it wouldn't have looked anything like this. And on the left, you have a pass, sort of like an amnesty allowance, where anybody that turns themselves into the police might potentially get amnesty. And of course, they were not getting amnesty. They were being imprisoned as soon as they handed themselves in. Can we see the next slide? So Operation Legacy is something that happened not only in Kenya, but in almost, I think, 23 former British colonies. I think including Singapore, including Malaysia, including many different places where the British had colonial interest. And Operation Legacy specifically was a British colonial offices. The British colonial office is what is now called the Foreign Office that we all know, but they had a program to destroy or hide files or to prevent them being inherited by its ex-colonies. This ran from the 1950s until the 1970s, when decolonization of the British Empire was at its height. MI5, or the special branch agents, were responsible for vetting all secret documents in the colonial administrations to find those that could embarrass the British government, for instance, by showing racial or religious bias. They identified 8,800 files to conceal from at least 23 countries and territories in the 1950s and 60s and destroyed them or sent them to the United Kingdom. Precise instructions were given for methods to be used for destruction, including burning and dumping at sea. Some of the files detailed torture methods used against opponents of the colonial administration, such as during the Mau Mau uprising. As decolonization progressed, British officials were keen to avoid a repeat of the embarrassment that had been caused by the overt burning of documents that took place in New Delhi in 1947, which had been covered by Indian news sources. On the 3rd of May 1961, the Secretary of State for the Colonies wrote a telegram to all British embassies to advise them on the best way to retrieve and dispose of sensitive documents, to prevent post-colonial governments from ever learning about Operation Legacy. Officials were required to dispatch destruction certificates to London, and in some cases, as the handover date approached, immolation tasks proved so huge that colonial administrators warned the Foreign Office that there was a danger of celebrating independence with smoke. There were four criteria for these migrations. One, documents that might embarrass Her Majesty's government or other governments. The second was any documents that might embarrass the police, military forces, public servants, or others, such as police agents or informers. The third being anything that might compromise sources of intelligence. And the fourth being anything that might be used unethically by ministers in the successive government. So basically protecting people from themselves. And this is what, if we look at the next slide, doesn't say much, but yes, this is what has come to be called a migrated archive. And the idea of the migrated archive is an archive that is in exile, essentially. And this is the kinds of archives that I work with and that we are collectively working to kind of repatriate and rehabilitate. And I think in this respect, it's important to say that when we think about restitution in East Africa, it is very much about, in the traditional sense of returning objects from Western museums and so on and so forth, or decolonizing the dialogues around what objects are stored in Western museums, and especially in places like Amsterdam, for example, that has a huge collection of Indonesian art that is very much on display and proudly on display, for example. In this respect, if we are interested in thinking about the idea of an archive that can be reconstituted, but reconstitution and repatriation is a question, in essence, of justice, rather than it is a question of moving material and objects from one place to another. It is a question of justice, like what is illegal redress for the harms that were perpetuated against people in certain regions. And so basically in activating myths and archives, we examine the wider implications of these discoveries for our understanding of the place of archival sources in reconstituting a deeply contested history. In the next slide, we can see a photograph taken by a journalist of some of these archives. The archives for Kenya are currently stored in Milton Keynes, and there is a court case to have them removed from the location in Milton Keynes and returned to Kenya. You can look at the next slide as well. And these are just small photographs that illustrate the condition of these archives, but then also specifically that show images that have never been seen in Kenya before. and have never been shown to native populations. And the last slide. Yes, this shows you a little bit the conditions under which people lived in, sorry, is there a problem? Somebody in my ear. Sorry, yeah, this shows a little bit the conditions under which people lived and how the colonial government created infrastructure and different mandates in order to control people. And the interesting thing about this image specifically, where you see people sitting on the ground, is that this is a strategy that is very much reproduced by the post-independence government. Yeah, so more or less that's the practice. And so what we're doing with the Wali Chafu Collective actually might be interesting to think about, because one of the key things is that we gather a group of archivists, of historians, of artists, of musicians, of musical historians, of people that are interested in general in thinking about the ways in which the past replays or reproduces itself in the present, and the traumas that are performed by our specific actions in engaging with the past, and basically creating images based around that. What I'm doing right now is I have last week, actually on the 1st of December, I moved to Kigali, and I'm interested in thinking alongside the genocide archive that exists in Rwanda, because this is a peculiarly graphic archive. And so one of the things that we are thinking about doing is trying to figure out like what it is about a specific context that generates specific types of archives. So the context of Rwanda somehow has generated an archive that makes it possible to view bodies in states of decay, in various states of decay in public. And I think this is unlike any other kind of archive that we know or we acknowledge. Like, we are very keen in, especially in contemporary art spaces, and thinking about trauma and thinking about how to mitigate trauma and how to be mediators for our audiences. But so yeah, as Wali Chafu, we're interested in thinking alongside those archives to try and figure out why it is that certain nations or certain contexts choose to display their archives in certain ways. And I wanted to say finally, Wali Chafu is a Swahili word. Wali is rice and chafu is dirty. So Wali Chafu means dirty rice. And dirty rice is what certain ethnic groups in Kenya call any kind of rice that is spiced, any kind of rice that that has seasoning in it. So anything apart from white rice, so a biryani or pilau, or like, yeah, any rice that you can imagine that isn't quite plain. And so this is a special message for us. So yeah, Wali Chafu is our way of thinking collectively and inviting actually people from many different cultures. Sorry about that, it's a vacuum. Yeah, inviting people from many different cultures to collaborate with us, to think with us. Anybody that enjoys rice, but also other foods, of course, is welcome to these discussions. And I hope from presentations like this that if anybody would like to get in touch, and if we can speak more about how to create extensions for these archives and how to continue these narratives, or how to think collaboratively around the work of restitution, I welcome it in the spirit of good rice dishes and tasty plates. Well, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Renee. Wow, interesting. You're talking about your title a bit scary, you know? Eerie, not scary. Yeah. So Renee, you concentrating in must be in research, yeah, collecting archives, and you make them updated and goes public now, right? And hope discrimination is not happening right now anymore, no? I hope not.
I think in
The segregation.
in many respects it is.
You?
Yeah, no, I think it is in different ways and different dynamics. Of course, there are class dynamics at play, but specifically to do with these archives that are in Milton Keynes, it is not possible as a Kenyan person, as a native Kenyan person, to view
Right,
these
right.
archives. So yeah, they still are mediated and mitigated by certain forms of whiteness, unfortunately.
But the
So, and I
situation
think,
is a lot better, though. The
yes,
situation is better, though. A lot better.
yes, better, better,
Good.
better. Yes, much better.
That's why you can go to Sao Paulo, no?
Well, actually, I've had a lot of problems getting to Sao Paulo. It's been a week of traveling, of trying to get there. So I don't know if it's better in that respect, but yes, I'm very privileged.
It'll be turn out well. I believe so.
Thank you.
Okay, you're
Thank
also
you very
dealing a
much.
lot with historians, must be, right? The historians,
Yes,
yeah.
yes,
And
I am.
yeah, the graphic art designer, and how you wish that we can collaborate with uh, the field that you concentrate in right now. Yeah, from probably from Indonesia or from all over the world that can collaborate if we have the same interests as what you do now. Yeah, we like to have a Q&A with you, but we believe that you have to catch your flight and you have to, buy things, perhaps get some sandwiches and stuff. So we let you free, and then anything, if we have questions or things that have to be clarified by you, and then we're gonna contact you through your email. Is that all right for you?
Yes, excellent. I'm
Yeah.
I'm very open to questions, and I will be back online in a few hours. So thank you
Sure.
very much for having me. And
Thank you.
yes,
And then
absolutely.
we keep in
Thank you
touch.
very much.
We keep in touch. Yeah.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Okay.
Just
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
bye. You have a safe flight, and then don't
Thank you very much.
don't don't shop too much. Okay. See you.
I will try. Thank
See you.
you.
Nice to have you.
Goodbye.
Nice to meet you. Bye, Renee.
Bye, Renee.
Bye, dears. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have our third speaker, and she's gonna be the last, but not least important, but very important and very interesting also. And her name is Miss Lydia. Okay, I'd like to introduce you a bit to the audience here, Miss Lian. Ready? Okay. Lian Ladia is a curator and organizer. She is currently a curator of exhibitions and programs at the 500 Cap Street in San Francisco. Lydia holds a postbaccalaureate in photography and from the San Francisco Art Institute and an MA in curatorial studies from Bard College in 2015. Participated in the Apple's curatorial program in Amsterdam, co-curating works by Meta Haven, Love Diaz, and Wu Sang, among others. From 2010 to 2015, Lydia was based in Southeast Asia, co-founding the Curatorial Collaborative Planting Rice, and working with artist-run Green Papaya Art projects. In her first year at 500 Cap Street, she established an artist residency program, an education program, and built an archive team as part of the commitment to mentorship, public engagement, and accessibility. And I would give you, Ms. Lian, 30 minutes to tell us about your works and your background and your presentation. Time and place, I give it to you. Thank you.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much.
Thank
What a
you.
great honor and pleasure to be part
Mabuhay.
of
Oh, I
this.
forgot.
Mabuhay. Yes. What a great honor and pleasure for me to be included in this dialogue, this conversation. Such interesting topics from Miss Grace and Miss Renee. Wow. Wow. Um, so I'm gonna just begin my presentation. It's called Minor Gestures. And actually, I'm just gonna start talking about this study that I have. So when I decided to use the term minor, I'm referring to the concept of minority developed by Gilles Deleuze and Félix Guattari in their books about minor literature. In these texts, they criticize the concept of majority. For Deleuze and Guattari, becoming minor is primarily an ethical action. It does not actually refer to minority groups, but it gives us a kind of sensitivity in relation to powers. It could mean becoming woman, becoming animal, and ultimately becoming revolutionary in a larger process of deterritorialization or extending territories. In this case, I wanted to explore how territories in exhibitions or exhibition making can be extended, punctuated by minor configurations. So in this presentation, I will be having 4 case studies. One is called an exhibition called Picasso in Palestine. It is curated by Khalid Hourani. The other one is Mining the Museum. It is an exhibition by artist Fred Wilson. The third one is Carlos Villa, a Filipino-American artist who was presented at the Singapore Biennial. And lastly, I'm going to share 500 Cap Street in San Francisco, the home of conceptual artist David Ireland, where I'm currently curator of exhibitions and program. Next slide, please. So I want to frame this presentation by sharing my subconscious. And my subconscious is always guarded by the golden Tara. And actually, it's a very interesting object. Its provenance can be traced in Agusan del Sur in the Philippines. It's a 14th century 21-karat gold female bodhisattva figurine, which sits in a cross-legged lotus position. One of the oldest pre-colonial objects that connects the Philippines to Srivijaya. The Tara manifests itself in various genders in different cultures, and sometimes it is male, and other times it is female. The Tara's presence represents female enlightenment. Actually, I went to Yogyakarta a few years ago for a talk in a project space there, and I made sure that I went to the Kalasan Temple and Kandi Kedulan. I don't know if you guys are familiar. Yeah. It is proof that there are routes. Yeah, it's proof that there are routes between Agusan and Yogyakarta. Perhaps a trading post for gold by use of sea vessels, because back then it was a Thalassic empire. Anyway, this object now is at the Hall of Gems in the Field Museum in the Natural History of Chicago. It is one of the many objects in the Hall of Gems. It does not discuss that it is an androgynous god, nor it was found by Alumad, which is like one of the oldest tribes in the Philippines, who has given it to a priest and sold to an American anthropologist. It is not discussed that this piece of object can link the Philippines to Srivijaya, what the Philippines is before it was colonized by Spain. It is encased in a tightly secured plinth and classified according to its scientific elemental quality, gold. Its position and placement is emblematic of Enlightenment interests, of the culture of object collection that points to historical identification of the West via commodity, colonialism, and conquest. Being a Filipino, this has always been a foreground to the contextual capacities of a gaze within exhibition making. for myself. It was not enough for me to walk on museum spaces. I always have questions. Next, please. So, as I mentioned, I'm going to be sharing some case studies of exhibitions that I feel are examples of minor gestures, what I call as minor gestures. This is a Picasso painting. And in 2009, Palestinian artist and educator, curator Khalid Harani proposed to transport this painting by Picasso called Bust de Femme, made in 1943, from the Van Abbe Museum in Eindhoven and bring the work to the International Academy of Art in Palestine in Ramallah for an exhibition. He picked this painting and he was not sure if he would be taken seriously. But he pushed through, they pushed through. They thought it was like an interesting experiment. It seemed impossible. And then they did it, but an overwhelming list of challenges followed. Contracts for the collection and museum loan requirements. That's one. Insurance agencies had to review the Oslo Peace Agreement and articulation of Palestinian sovereignty, which made it difficult to move forward. Next slide, please. They actually found an adventurous company in Malta to take on this impossible project. There was a lot of paperwork to complete. They had to plan strategies, and it was an arduous 2-year process. The painting was flown to Tel Aviv airport. From there, it traveled to Avan, to Ataro checkpoint, and then with private security to Kwalandia checkpoint, and then to Ramallah with the Palestinian police. It was a $7 million painting, and it had to be temperature and humidity controlled. It had to be in an air-conditioned room, and they had to build this. It was a 3-kilometer section where only civilians could pass and no security was allowed. And at that point, they sought protection from 20 or so media cameras that broadcast the passage of the artwork live. At any moment, the condition of the transport could have been exposed to a sudden flare-up of violence in Gaza or on the West Bank. Once the painting arrived, experts had to oversee the opening of the crates as well as the temperature and humidity measurements and qualification of the newly built house designed specifically for the painting. Only 7 people were allowed to enter the room at one time due to preservation standard. Next slide, please. The project became a site of confrontation between European modernity and contemporary Palestinian culture. This resulted to an unfolding and revelation of hidden infrastructure that challenged the basic qualities of a nation's sovereignty and questioned the relevance of so-called international meteorological institutions, if they are still relevant in a place like Palestine. So the gesture here is, what if you push for a project and just see where it leads you, and you just document the process? This exhibition was consciously designed as a kind of critical gesture, as a way to use the value of art and the difficulty of transporting it as a way to throw into relief the absurdities of life under occupation. Next slide, please. So this is the next case study that I wanted to share, and it is a exhibition by artist Fred Wilson. Fred Wilson was commissioned by curators George Sissel and Lisa Corinne of the nomadic platform The Contemporary to access the Maryland Historical Society to create an exhibition about exposing the mechanism of history and museology, focusing on the issue of Blackness within the Maryland Historical Society. So Fred Wilson is African American, and he always felt a kind of uncomfortability when he goes to the Maryland Historical Society. And so the gesture here is, what if you explore this discomfort? In this picture, it's a display encased in the vitrine where silver pitchers and goblets from 1830 and 1880s is together with the slave shackles from that same period, because he was trying to explore this idea of blackness and metalwork in the collection, and he found this silver pitchers and goblets, but for thinking about blackness, the object that he found were slave shackles, and he just displayed it like this. So he excavates to find objects that symbolizes disenfranchisement and missing traces of intellectual history. He exposes the audience to how institutions and historical systems amplify the problems of society. Next slide, please. He also collected some paintings and looked at the positions of African Americans in the paintings, and usually they are to the side or not really on the center view. And so he displayed an array of these paintings. Next slide, please. So now I'm going to talk about the work of Carlos Villa, who is a Filipino-American artist born in San Francisco. As an art student in 1950s, he asked his professor about Filipino-American art, and a teacher told him that there was no art history to learn. This was in the 1950s. That became an inspiration for him towards his never-ending quest of creating a dialogue to find the history of Filipino art and Western art history, which eventually led to a great contribution to a zeitgeist of artistic multiculturalism in the Bay Area in the 1970s. So it's just very recently that people have been knowing about Carlos Villa's work. He's mostly known as an educator, actually, but in the recent Singapore Biennial, his work was presented there, and the Biennial actually started with his work. People think that his work, you can go to the next slide. People would think that his work is ethnographic, but it is actually fictional ethnography to lead him to bigger questions about his identity. His inspirations is actually gestural abstraction, but he's trying to rediscover or find his own history by producing these works. Next slide, please. Being an educator was really important for him. He created symposiums about equity in thinking about canon of contemporary art, and he would create his own curriculum, or he would consider his curriculum as an artwork, just like the framed piece of paper on the right. That is his curriculum for a class that he teaches, but he considers that an artwork. And usually his curriculums is really about the student creating his own curriculum. He felt that he needed to do the work himself to challenge the status quo. So to him, being an artist and an educator is seamless. It is much needed for him. So the gesture here is, what if you present your work as a continuous search to a question? Next slide, please. So now I'm going to talk about the space where I work at in San Francisco. It's called 500 Cap Street, and it's actually the house of David Ireland. who's a conceptual artist in San Francisco. So David actually bought this house in 1975, and it became his project. He did some repairs. He started cleaning, and then he realized actually he went to art a very later age already. He was already 43 and 44, and he already had like a previous life. But at an older age, he decided to become an artist. And by cleaning and repairing, he realized that, next slide, please. So this is the house in its condition now. When he passed away in 2009, actually, and when he passed away, the community came together because David was scared that his house will just be taken by, in the marketplace to be sold as real estate. But it turned into a foundation. A philanthropist bought the house, and now it is an art space. They hired an architects and conservators to save the house. Next slide, please. So as I was saying, this is what's inside the house. When David Ireland started working on it, he started cleaning, repairing, and realizing that the care that he was doing for his own artworks is the same care that he was doing in repairing the house. And then all of a sudden, things clicked to him that everything was art. He loved the walls of the house. He took out all the wallpaper. He exposed the cracks and treated the house like it was a skull. And he exposed the cracks and sealed it in a kind of polyurethane, like it was a fossil. And he was just experimenting. He would be calling wire sculptures as wire drawings. He would he would fill out some gaps in the walls, like he was treating a painting. He would be experimenting and putting sculptures on the ceiling. And in the end, the house became a sculpture. It became like his most valuable, important work. And if you go there, you would certainly feel that it is a sculpture. Next slide, please. So David had a past life, and in his past life, he had an interior design shop where he imported and exported objects from Africa. And in the dining room, he put some objects in here. And I came into this house in 2018. And whenever I go to the dining room, I always feel a little uncomfortable there. And so I thought that it would be one of my projects to decolonize the collection in the house and think about strategies on how to remediate problematic collections, just like this room, which is to me is symbolic to the cabinets of curiosities, or how museums even started, or how complicit museology is with colonialism and imperialism. Next slide, please. So to guide myself within the programming of the house, I started to create a residency. I opened up, I started an archival team, and I also started an education team so that the youth in our neighborhood will be able to also be able to explore art. Basically, I wanted as many people in the community to have access to the house, to have access to this time capsule of conceptual art from the 70s to 2000, because that's like the time that David had the house and the time when he was really active in conceptual art art scene in San Francisco. Next slide, please. This is one of the programs that I have started. When I was talking about decolonizing the archive, this program is called Shifting Possessions, and it's a salon series led by artist and queer theorist, a scholar. His name is Viet Lei, and in this particular table, it is a mix of students, curators, artists in one table. And actually, we were discussing, problematic collections. And the guest speaker was Patrick Flores, who's a Filipino curator who's well known in, post-colonial collections. He actually discussed this exhibition that he had to curate, which is the collection of Imelda Marcos. Next slide, please. And this is the current project that I have right now. I mean, every so often we have a resident artist, but this is just really fresh. This show just opened 2 days ago, and Sherwin Rio has been going and researching in the house every so often for the whole 2022. But in the past month, he was staying in the house with his wife. He actually just got married and they were both staying in the house, and he had some ideas on installations that he wanted to do in the house. Next slide, please. So this is one work that he had. He discovered what was remaining of a wallpaper in one of the cabinets, because if you saw the earlier photo, it was David Ireland took out all the wallpaper, right? So apparently hidden in one of the cabinets, there is still a remnant of a wallpaper there. And in the middle photo, it doesn't see it quite clearly, but actually in the middle photo, when David Ireland took out all the wallpaper, there's a signature that revealed itself. So apparently back in the day, putting wallpaper is a craft, that the person who would put the wallpaper would put his signature. So that's a really precious a moment in the house when the wallpaper was peeled. The signature revealed itself, which is the person who put the wallpaper there. But with Sherwin, he wanted to see what the wallpaper looked like, so he did a lino cut print of what this wallpaper is, and installed the wallpaper in one section of the house. Next slide, please. Sherwin Show is really about exposing different stories, different narratives in the house. He put these frames around the curved wall. The curved wall is a very special part of the house. David Ireland actually really loved the house because of this curved wall, and he would make stories that this was a ship captain's house. That's why it was a curved wall. But actually, he just made up that story, And so there's like this amount of fiction that is welcome in the house. But Sherwin wanted to also put a frame around it to see what if this fictional story did not exist. What if this was, just like this angular wall? Would you prefer the fictional story, or would you not? Would you just prefer like the real story? I personally would prefer the fictional story. Next slide, please. Part of the work that Sherwin wanted to do was to neutralize the dining room, to neutralize the air in the dining room. So and this also contributed to the fact that we wanted to decolonize the collections and objects in the dining room. One by one, actually within the last 2 years, we wanted to specify each object in the collection and trace where it is from, and make it a collaborative kind of decision-making process on the next steps that we can do. But while we're doing these steps, we're also creating programs to sort of guide us within these steps. So we took out all the objects from the dining room, and Sherwin put some electric fans around the room and some mirrors just to clean the air, neutralize the energy in the room. And next slide, please. And his main gesture was to topple down the table, to put the table upside down. And this was the installation that he created. So he cleared out the objects and put it in our archive room. And now we have the task of specifying these objects and also discussing these in our salon series, and how he turned over the table as a gesture of neutralizing the space. And also this form actually looks like sort of like a rib cage, or like it's like he's saying that it looks like there's like air rotating around the house, like this is like the rib cage of the house, and that it needs to breathe a little right now. Next slide. So that is the end of my presentation. Again, I go back to, the golden Tara, which for me is symbolic to my many goals as a Filipino curator. I want to explore how territories in exhibition making can be extended. I didn't want to work in white spaces and white cubes with perfectly framed artworks and museum labels telling you the story of power. My question is, what if we puncture the spectacle of power in exhibition frameworks with minor configurations? So that's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Lian. Applause for Ms. Lian. Thank you. So interesting. So I have one question. So where do you think the artist can get inspiration from?
Where can the artist can get inspiration from?
Yes.
It's anywhere. From the everyday.
As simple as that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. You have presented very well material. So I don't want to ask you more questions, but I like to offer the forum. If there is anyone of you audiences want to ask from these two ladies, we all know their expertise by now. So anyone raise hands, or in our chat room, we give you the time. Yeah. Before anyone's asking questions, then I would ask Miss Lian another question. Yeah. So you're doing now in order to find new artists and things. So you run the 500 Cap Streets gallery, is it?
Yes, it's an art space. Yes.
So you are the person who responsible and get the authorized to run the place, right?
I'm the curator. Yeah, for exhibitions and programs.
So if we have students or alumni from our school and can collaborate with your museum, your gallery, let's say, art space, is it?
Yeah.
And then I have another questions. You're talking about Picasso, yeah, the masterpiece, right? Why Ramallah, Palestine? Why not Jakarta, Indonesia? I mean, I know the answer was to critique, the
It's
fighting
possible,
countries.
Yeah, that particular example is by a Palestinian curator, artist.
Okay.
Khalid Hourani is Palestinian. And I guess being Filipino, I have the same questions, what is the value of museums really?
Right.
I mean, in the Philippines, museum collections is really the collection of the elite, so I'm actually like looking at the collection of rich people, what is the value in that? Sometimes I ask these questions.
Mm.
But to answer your question, it's in Palestine because the artist curator is Palestinian, and it was actually a joke for him because in Ramallah, I don't think, I mean, now they have a museum, but back then I don't think they have a museum yet. He was just like speculating, you know, what if we bring a Picasso in Palestine? It's like a joke, right? Why would you need a Picasso in
Right,
Palestine?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and where this Picasso painting came from? What museum having it?
Oh, it's from Eindhoven in the Netherlands at Van Abbe
Oh, in the
Museum.
Netherlands. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So they must pay a lot of insurance, no?
Yeah.
To go to
Yeah.
Ramallah.
Yeah. But also the curators from Van Abbe, they're very interested in this experiment too. So I'm assuming that they really supported Khalid Horani in the project, just to like push the question, you know.
Great. Thank you. Let me I have someone ask about Ibu Ananda Mursid. I think she's asking about museology associate with Colonia. Silakan Ibu Ananda. Do you want to ask questions or an imperialism? I want to ask about decolonization of archives. That's from Ibu Ananda Mursid. I think you're talking about decolonization of archives, Miss Lian. Would you answer that, or would you give a statement about the lady's question? Yes, please.
Yeah, decolonizing the archives. I'm really interested in this. But also not just the archives, even the hierarchy in like an art institution.
Mm-hmm.
It's really a question of power for me. You know, what stories get to be told, who gets to tell the story, you know. When I started working in 500 Cap Street, it's actually really easy for me because it's a home, it's a house. So I can contextualize it that way, that this is a house, this is a home, this is an artist's home. And instead of the concepts being led by, let's just say, you know, a patriarchal curator, I would prefer that it is led by an artist, that it is artist led. And then if we make decisions, I would prefer that we are collaborative. And in terms of the archives, what I have is archives of conceptual art in San Francisco, and it's usually white male exhibitions. You know, where are the women there? Where are the artists of color there? You know, where are the people who look like me? So I created like an invitation for artists to have similar interests to access the archives. Yeah, and then in turn they create interesting exhibitions. One of them was actually LGBTQ feminist artist, and she questioned where are the women in the archives, and she created an exhibition about that. So that's decolonizing for me. It's just exploring where the women are, you know, where the artists of color are. Yeah.
Oh, that's why you call it minor, huh? Is it? Oh, okay. Someone's raising hand. Miss Grace, do you have any questions? You wanna ask things? Yes, please. You still mute. Yeah.
Yes,
Good.
okay. Actually, I just want to not to ask, but more to add something. That is the problem at the moment, not only today, but also in the past, where like minority artists, color artists, if you are an artist, we don't want to put that, but basically the problem is that we don't have the same space given to the male white artist, so for it's really important also, not only in the history in the past and also today. It's quite when, for example, if I introduce myself to new people in the art world in Scotland, I always said, look, I'm Grace Siregai, I'm an artist. And then if people see me, they just look at like that, so they can't even relate it to it, because not only that we have to introduce ourselves, but also we have to try 10 times very hard to tell that we need the same space to exhibit our work as the same space that given to the especially for the male, not only male and also white, especially where you live in the white minority in the European countries or in America, like Liane said, So the same question is that the system have to be changed, So that's it. Important for the history written in the future for the young generation of any nation, and also important for the artists, young artists for the future on. That's it. Same with Liane.
Yeah. That's very good statement. And then now you have a friend in San Francisco, Miss Grace. So you
Yeah.
can have your exhibition anytime. And I'm gonna be the middleman of your two business, okay? Okay. I have one other question, Miss Liane. What is the biggest challenge for you to work as curator in the different contexts from your homeland, Manila? You get it? Easy, huh? To answer, no?
Actually, it's very difficult to be a curator in Manila,
Why is that?
but it's also really interesting. Because there's no the jobs are very limited, and there's no government infrastructure for artists really.
Mm,
But what's interesting is it's the artists themselves that create this infrastructure, and I think that's more powerful too. So the question is, what is the what
What is the biggest challenge for you to work as curator in different contexts from your homeland, Manila? So I think you answered it already.
I
Yeah,
did?
America's easier than in Manila, right?
Um, yeah, I guess, yeah.
That's why
Yeah,
you're in San Francisco now. Yeah,
yeah,
it's easier for you to
yeah.
get a job as curator there in San Francisco than in Manila, right?
Yes. So like
I thought
have like yeah. Mhm.
I thought the Philippines is really Americanized. No, it's a lot different still.
Yeah, it's very Americanized, yeah, but politically it's very difficult.
Okay,
Economically and politically. Yeah. It's fun and it's alive, and it's
right.
the arts actually the art scene is more interesting in the Philippines than in Manila than in San Francisco, to be quite honest. Um
Okay.
but it's difficult to survive.
do you know anything about the development of Indonesian artists or anything about Indonesian art or anything in San Francisco or in America at all?
In San Francisco, I mean, I'm part of a board of muralists called Clarion Alley, and they have exchange with Jogjakarta actually. So Jogjakarta artists have a presence in San Francisco because murals is very famous in San Francisco.
Do you involve in that?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I support it.
So
Yeah,
our
I'm part of the board.
yeah, so our
Mhm.
artists can have the information from you to expand their uh way of thinking, inspiration, or to display their
Yeah,
works, perhaps.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I'm very open to any exchange for
and
sure.
any
Yeah.
kind of art, or just contemporary art.
Any question I'm open to answering. Yeah.
Thank you, Miss Lian. I have another
Mhm.
question, Miss Grace. What do you think? What do you think for the Indonesian artists to be internationally known? How we start working? Being an international artist like you.
Yeah,
Do you have any advice?
yeah, basically for the Indonesian young artists who at the moment attending this conference, my advice is just have exhibition. You don't have to depend on have exhibition in a gallery, but you can create an exhibition in the open space like park, like in your garden or part of the maybe in the beach, maybe in the neighborhood, and then with that you can take a photo of your work, and then later on it will develop to the achievement of people recognize your work independently. And from that, normally, like my experience in Jakarta, of course, I exhibited my work in galleries and national gallery and other galleries, but also I never not giving the public the chance to see my work outside of the gallery. For example, in the park in Block M Park in Jakarta, and Pasar Genjing in Jakarta, and also in Monas in Monument Nasional. So people who not from art world itself, just an ordinary Indonesian can see the work. So that is, I think, my advice for the young Indonesian artists, And then in the same time, also, you can approach people in the art world to show your work. And then that's the way also, the way you can connect it to the bigger space to display your work, or being invited to show your work to the public. So it's important to show your work outside of the main galleries. Just show it in the market, and then show it in the park, show it next to the neighborhood you live, and then show it to the people, or even in the school. So for example, you can introduce yourself and go to school, work together with the school, and then display your work and work together with the student as well. So that is my advice.
Okay, so if you want to have an exhibitions, but you are having very expensive and very delicate piece of art, and I want to have it show in certain galleries, would I need a middleman or event organizer or curator like Miss Lian?
Sorry, in the chat I put the artists from Jogjakarta who
Okay.
have a presence in San Francisco, because you asked that question.
Okay, so we can
I-
contact them also, huh? And collaborate
No,
with
I'm
the
just saying
other
that
artists.
Indonesian artists have a presence in San Francisco.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
that's a list of art.
we don't need an agent or some context or anything except we are just have to know you, huh? Yeah. Yeah, make the work simple, lah.
I'm
Ah,
having very difficulty with your questions.
okay, we gonna do it after this seminar, and we
No,
can
no, but
have, yes,
I also want to say that it really depends on the goal of the artist. You know,
right, right.
what is your goal? Is your goal to create a philosophical impact? Anybody can do that, right?
Mm,
That is the most important thing. Or is your goal to be famous? That's hard.
In
okay.
my
It's-
in my opinion, I've been exhibiting my work around the globe. My goal is not the first one to be famous or to be recognized, but uh, as an artist from North Sumatra, Indonesia, my goal is just to show my work to different people and nation and also continents.
To
From that,
express it.
yeah. So a lot of people want to be seen, and to see and to be seen, and it's different from me. With me, I just want to show my works and let my work speak by itself, and then to be able to, as much as possible, that people from all over the world to see the work. I'm become not important out. The most important is my work itself. But if people are interested to talk to me, of course I will talk, But like you said, what is your goal to be an artist? So that's the way I navigate my art, just to see that my work is more important, and then more important to be seen for the public, and then in different space and different culture in different continents, and then speak by itself.
Wow.
Famous,
Oh,
famous is not.
I just love this dialogue. Yeah, this is the man of having this seminar. Yeah, we have the dialogue. We compromise to differences. But before I give the time to our MC, I would like to give you some times for the last statements. Perhaps you like to tell us something that we can learn from you.
I think from my experience, I would like the Indonesian artist from Sumatra to Papua has the opportunity to be invited in the
Mm,
exhibition, either by a big gallery in Jakarta or Indonesia, or internationally. Because at the moment we can see that a lot of artists from Indonesia is being presented from either Jakarta, Bandung, West
mm.
Java, or Yogyakarta, center of Java, and Bali, because it's Bali as well. But artists from other part of Indonesia, like in Borneo and Sulawesi, Papua, Moluccans, and find it quite difficult to be represented. So for me, it would be better if if organization want to have exhibition, they have to do more research about artists from all over Indonesia or in the world, and representing balancedly in an international exhibition like biennial, or international exhibition, or region exhibitions, so we can make this art more richer, because more artists have a chance to show their
Make your
work to the
names,
public.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Miss Grace. Miss Leanne, do you have anything else to say?
Well, I would say that, for myself, my ideal society is that if we are run by artists,
Mm,
really. And I mean, for your art to be in fact impactful, a good question to ask is, what is needed right now?
Okay.
What is needed right now? And when you have big questions, that's also okay. You just trust the process. And
Mhm.
actually, if you trust the process, it will lead you to where you want to go. You don't have to like have the final answer right now.
Okay.
Just trust the process. Just keep asking the question, and it will lead you to yourself, really, which is really where the answer is. It is within you. Yeah.
Okay, good. And then I also hope the arts in Philippines, yeah, would be more lively and get supported a lot from the government. Huh? How's about that? Good, sounds good, huh? Okay, ladies, you are very great. We applause for your knowledge and then sharing. That's most important thing. You have all this knowledge and you're willing to share it to us. And then I would say thank you and hope to see you again. And then we have to be in touch. And I give you the time back to our MC Tara.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thank you.
Now we will proceed into gift awarding.
First of all, I want to say thank you to all the keynote speaker who are very extraordinary speaker, yeah. So this is first awarding. I want to give it to Miss Grace Siregar. Thank you for your join to our seminar, our event. Yes, thank you. And the second, I want to give it to Ms. Lian Ledia. Thank you for your joining. See you again. Okay, I think. Okay. Thank you.
Oh, I got
And
one
the
too.
last one, I give it to the moderator, Mas Nuna, Mas Taruna Kusmayadi. Thank you for your kindly to become moderator today. Yes, thank you, Mas Nuna. Okay, I give it to back to Sarah. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much to Mr. Taruna Kusmayadi, Grace Siregar, Renee Akitalek Mboya, and Lian Ladia for the wonderful presentation and as well as the really interesting dialogue. Thank you very much for your time and knowledge. So once again, I would also like to thank Dr. Madia Patra Ismar, Dr. Indah Cahya Wulan, and Rodolfo Andaur for the very insightful lecture. And also special thanks to Mr. Anindyo Widito and Dr. Sri Parianti Pane, and for the committee of ICDAD 2022. I hope that everyone enjoyed the seminar and gained a new perspective about the transcultural dialogue on art and design. So before we end the seminar, can I have everyone please open up their cameras?
Ya, udah mau dimatiin.
Okay, I'm still waiting for a few others. Can everyone please open up their cameras? We want to take a group photo. Okay, everyone please smile. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay, another slide. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Thank you everyone for your participation in this event. We hope to see you again in the next International Conference Dialogue on Art and Design. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye, ladies.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you so
Bye,
much,
Lee.
Kak Grace
Thank you.
Siregar.
Assalamualaikum.
Thank you
Elsa,
so
Elsa.
much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Bye,
everyone.
Lian. Bye, Miss Grace.